strategy. I mean, what has happened here is that the agenda changed once the Republicans made the decision to focus on Medicare. Now, listen, personally, from a not just from a Democrat perspective, but just from a strategist perspective, I think it's boldly foolish because it's an argument that when you scratch the surface, the Republicans don't have a good argument. The same thing they're criticizing President Obama for, the $716 billion savings, cost savings, it's not a cut. Right, is the same thing that Ryan has in his budget. So you start scratching past the surface of the rhetoric, what you realize is they're going to basically voucherize a program and create a lot of anxiety among seniors who are currently on Medicare, or even those...
We're going down the road again. We're just replaying the conversation that everyone's had over the last weekend, and no one's really asking for specific details about how we get jobs back to the economy. So, should Democrats not indulge the Republicans in this conversation, and should Democrats, like the president, come out strongly and boldly with a very clear plan for the United States and what the next 4 years are going to look like as far as growing jobs?
Well, I mean, I think in fairness, the president has been out there talking pretty aggressively about the economy and what he plans to do. When you're talking about, for example, in terms of tax reform and having reform that basically makes sure that the top end are paying their fair share, and you structure the codes that basically allows the middle class to have tax cuts, and that way you allow more money to go into the economy to create jobs, that is talking about the economy. When you're talking about addressing the deficit and the debt in a balanced way, and that means revenues as well as savings and spending, that is talking about the economy and creating jobs.
Let me ask Ron to come in here. Ron is now joining us. And Ron, what Chris said is this conversation that the Republicans are having on Medicare is, in his words, boldly foolish. And he says the president is talking about job creation by talking about tax reform and tax policy. What do you think Republicans should do? Should they remain in this conversation on Medicare, or should they release to the public in the last 11 weeks before the election a detailed plan on job creation?
Well, let me just say this. I think it's a brilliantly bold and it's just smart politics for Romney-Ryan team to do this. Why? Because the Democrats were going to attack him on it anyway. As soon as Paul Ryan was selected, they were going to go after him on Medicare. And instead, the campaign did what we call political jujitsu. We took the opponent's energy and flipped it, and now have gone on the attack against President Obama's campaign and said, look, you're going to take $700 billion out of Medicare to pay for Obamacare. It's smart. It put them on the defensive. And what they're doing now over the next week or so is they're beginning to neutralize this issue. Seniors have a positive impression.
Then? Ron, when do you make that switch? You got that jiu-jitsu move in there.
You switch it during the convention. Right when you go into the convention, that is going to switch out to jobs in the economy. But what they have to do is neutralize this issue right now, and they're doing an effective job over it. And they know voters, the number one issue of voters' minds right now is the economy. But they also know that they want to keep the senior vote in there. They want to keep it in the Romney camp, and they don't want it to go away. In fact, Florida seniors approve of Mitt Romney and approve of Paul Ryan far and away to President Obama.
So, Chris, we knew about the P90X, right, with Paul Ryan. We didn't know anything about the jiu-jitsu moves that Ron is talking about
yeah,
here.
I didn't know the Republicans knew jiu-jitsu. I haven't seen it the last few years.
So if that's the move, let's say Ron's right, they're going to switch back to jobs in the economy next week during the conventions. The Democrats can sit back and plan accordingly their next move. Chris, so what do you think the Democrats are going to go for during that convention? What's going to be the message?
I mean, I think what you do is you point out, I think, the pathological hypocrisy of this ticket. I mean, here's what I think is so frustrating, for the American people when you look at Romney and Ryan. They will sit there and criticize Democrats about deficit and debt, yet by his own budget, they don't have any idea when the budget gets balanced, and they add trillions to the debt. They talk about Medicare, but their program actually guts Medicare. They criticize the president about stimulus, and you learn Ryan actually sent letters to his constituents supporting the stimulus. And so I think what you do is you expose the fact when you scratch past the surface, you see nothing new, no new agenda, no new policies.
Ron, I only have 20 seconds here. Ron, quick final thought.
Yeah, we've had three and a half years of watching President Obama give us basically a phony administration. We still have high unemployment. We have high deficits. We have high debt, high spending. He has nothing to show for it. Voters do not feel better off today than they did did 4 years ago.
All right,
I think you got
to
right.
Leave it there. We look forward to having you both back. We got 11 weeks. We can talk jobs. We can talk details, talk jiu-jitsu, all of that stuff. So we look forward.